A Canadian locomotive leading a freight train in the heart of the Deep South down the middle of the street? Yeah, this short line is something special for sure. Coming up, we're checking out the Alabama and Tennessee River Railway. It passes through small towns, over bridges, and runs into the big city, serving several interesting customers along the way. Come along for the ride, next. The Alabama and Tennessee River Railway is a short line with 120 miles of track. It runs trains on right-of-way once operated by CSX and its predecessors. The ATM took over operations from CSX in 2004, and the railroad is currently controlled by Omnitrax, which operates various other short lines in Canada and the United States. The ATN runs from Birmingham north to Guntersville, Alabama, and as you're about to see, the railroad has a diverse fleet of secondhand diesels, both big and small. It's July 13th, 2026, and we're starting our trip in the small town of Ragland, Alabama. It's around 48 miles northeast of Birmingham. This wide-nosed diesel once belonged to Canadian National, and it still has some of its original zebra stripe paint showing. We'll talk more about locomotives like these a little later. Sitting next to the line here is part of the railroad's history, an old Seaboard Airline depot built circa 1913. Now, Ragland is the site of a huge railroad customer, National Cement. According to that company's website, they've been making the stuff here for well over 100 years. So what does the railroad do for them? Well, they bring in empty cement hoppers and haul the loaded ones out. Cement is quite dense and heavy, and it's typically hauled in short, 2-bay covered hoppers like these. Of course, cement is the key ingredient of concrete. It acts as the glue when mixed with water and an aggregate like rock, gravel, or sand. Here's an ex-CSX ST60 that was built in 1989 for Conrail, running long hood forward, heading north towards Gadsden, Alabama. The train will eventually cross the Coosa River here in Ohatchee. Cars and trucks can cross a little ways up the river at this dam. Eventually, the train will pass over the Coosa River again in Gadsden. Among other things, the city was once home to some major steel production. It was also a river port, but today the only folks out here are fishermen. Downtown is where you'll see a short stretch of street running. And following the tracks west, you'll find the ATN's yard. This is where the railroad is based. Gadsden, more specifically the Alabama City neighborhood, is the ATN's interchange with Norfolk Southern. Think of short lines as providing last-mile connectivity to their customers. Interchanges like these connect them to the entire U.S. rail network. Down in the yard, you can see the railroad's diverse locomotive roster. I'm talking about ex-Union Pacific, Southern Pacific, Canadian National, and more. Back in 2024, I captured some footage of this classic headed toward the yard in Gadsden. It's an ex-Burlington Northern ST40-2 that was built in 1979. Locomotives last a long time, and there's no doubt this one has seen a lot of miles. The ST40-2 was built by General Motors' Electromotive division, and many are still in use on short lines and the big Class 1 railroads. Following the ATN main line around 25 miles north of Gadsden is the town of Albertville. There's that ex-Burlington Northern locomotive again, along with another wide-nose ex-Canadian National engine. Number 9401 has been painted in the ATN's colors, but it still maintains its distinctive Canadian identity. This is a GMD GP40-2L built in 1974. The L indicates that it has a lighter frame than other GP40-2s to accommodate a larger fuel tank and more sand. If you didn't know, sand is used to give locomotives more traction when needed. Now, GMD was Electromotive Division's Canadian subsidiary. In the late 1980s through the 1990s, wide-nose safety cabs started to become the standard on long-haul diesel-electric locomotives. But they had been doing this in Canada for many years before that. These cabs provided crews with more comfort, more front-end safety, plus protection from those harsh Canadian winters. CN also had special snow shields on these to keep snow from being sucked into the air intakes. Here, you can also see there are 3 classification lights on either side of the cab and a cab-mounted bell. There are actually a decent amount of these still roaming the rails in North America. Right now, the crew is switching a company called Color Masters. It makes flexible films and packaging. But possibly the most interesting customer the ATN serves is this scrapyard. But it's not just any scrapyard. This is where old rail equipment comes to die. Progress Rail operates this facility, and you may recognize that name. They're a subsidiary of Caterpillar and own Electromotive Diesel, formerly General Motors Electromotive Division. Today, they're using a relatively rare EMD GP20D to pull gondolas around their property. Pretty unusual power, but check this out. When I came here in 2024, they were using this highly decorated ex-Norfolk Southern high hood EMD GP38-2. Judging by this massive pile of old cars, trucks, and buses, they stay pretty busy here. Specialized material handlers with cabs that can raise and lower are using their long hydraulic arms to unload semis and feed this scrap metal shredder. It divides up and processes materials that will be recycled and eventually made into something new. Now, in addition to road vehicles, according to the Progress Rail website, they specialize in recycling derailed and retired rail cars. They say they can even dismantle derailed cars at the accident site if necessary. Progress Rail's roots can actually be traced to a recycling company that was started in Albertville in the early 1980s. And Progress Rail's headquarters is still located here. The line in Albertville eventually meets the Tennessee River about 10 miles north of here in Guntersville. For many years, a special barge would shuttle rail cars over the river and up to Huntsville, Alabama. These photos were taken in the late 1930s of the Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis Railway. Meanwhile, back at Gadsden, the crew we saw earlier in Ragland is getting off this lash up, and another crew is about to get a train ready to head out of the yard. They'll be doubling up the train by grabbing long cuts of cars from a couple of the yard tracks. Here's that cab-mounted bell in action. One more shove to grab some cars and they'll be headed towards downtown Gadsden. It's around 4 p.m. Central Time now, and I guess this is what the start of rush hour looks like today. It would appear the traffic lights are tied into the railroad movements. All cross traffic has red lights and no left turn signs are activated. This brief stretch of street running quickly turns into a river crossing as the train slowly makes its way south. The ATN also runs long, heavy road trains down to Birmingham using big EMD diesels. Here's one of those trains passing through Irondale, Alabama in February of 2026. But things get even more interesting when the train gets close to its interchange at CSX's Boyles Yard. It's June 2025 and a freight train is pounding the diamonds in Birmingham. This is where the ATN crosses Norfolk Southern. Next to the tracks, Frisco number 4018, built in 1919 by Lima Locomotive Works. It sits on the grounds of the Sloss Furnaces National Historic Landmark. Nearby, an ATN train is slowly making its way to a signal that will indicate if it can cross. Both of these ST-70Ms were built in 2001 by EMD. Not long after bringing the train to a stop, it's back on the move, crossing over NS. There were lots of loaded cement hoppers on this train. In just a couple of miles, they'll be dropping those off before picking up other cars and heading back towards Gadsden. You know, the thing I really like about short lines, in addition to the history of the right-of-way, is seeing older locomotives and the occasional fallen flag paint scheme. It can really take you back to another place and time. Now, after you finish here, I'd encourage you to check out another one of my videos featuring a model railroad that draws a lot of inspiration from the ATN. See if you can pick out some of the similarities. Anyway, that's it for now. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.